Hey Roadies, this is Adriana from Roadie Free Radio. In this episode, Larry speaks with Matt McGlynn, founder of Roswell Pro Audio and microphoneparts.com. In this short clip, Matt talks about what separates his companies from other sound companies in the industry. One of his products, the Special DIY Kit, where you can learn how to build your own premium studio mics from the comfort of your homes. With his experience and extensive research in microphones, Matt also sells his own specially designed mics. If you want to hear more about Matt and find out what the best microphones are on the market, make sure to check out the full episode from July 3rd, 2020. Thank you for listening, and thank you for subbing. Here are Larry and Matt.
People are like, whoa, dude, what's your deal? Like, I love your studio, but your voice sounds great. Because I think outside of the audio world, people are used to like yelling at their laptop, right? Or like doing that, and they're just not used to it. And I want to be like, it's not that much of a step to just add a better microphone than your laptop has to get going. But I want you to know, I was voted like best sounding alumni guy on the call.
That's awesome.
And it is. It's a great mic, man. I know we talked about trying the 47, and you were like, no, if you like the 87, stick with that, and it's good. Yeah. And it's been amazing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm glad it's working for you.
And these are your two entry level, as you said. Yeah.
Yeah, they're both. So the Mini K47's $349, and the Mini K87's $399. Mini K87 is it basically just, it's harder to make. That one requires some special care to get it dialed in the way we want it. So there's a lot of hands-on that goes into that. So, but I think the world has really woken up to audio, at least to some degree, and that's saying something considering the way MP3s have sort of taken over audio. And to a consumer, MP3 means convenience, right? I can carry 1 million songs in my pocket. I can Bluetooth them to my car stereo. I don't need to carry around media anymore. I mean, what a miracle. Yeah. But to an audio engineer, the compromises involved in squashing audio data to such a small bundle, it's painful, Yeah. Like how much fidelity am I giving up for that convenience? And so there's two sides of that argument, and clearly convenience is one. There's like no question that convenience has beaten fidelity for the vast majority of people. All that said, since the pandemic and due to the pandemic, everyone who used to have a job that required any kind of meetings, interactions, group consensus kind of stuff, everyone's doing that online now. Yeah. And as you say, they're shouting into their laptops, and it sounds awful. Yeah. Earbud microphones, it's a coin toss. I've had Apple brand earbuds where the microphone, the speakers, the earbuds themselves sound fine, but the microphone is not great. The laptop is worse. I mean, the problem with your laptop mic is not the problem of the mic, it's the problem of the room you're sitting in. Yeah. A lot of people are sitting in their living rooms with the vaulted ceiling and the hardwood floor, and every time they speak, you can hear their voice bouncing off of all those hard surfaces and coming into the microphone a second later. Yeah. So it just sounds cavernous. Yep. It's a nice effect occasionally, but it's terrible in a meeting. Right. It's unintelligible and this and that. So, so I've heard that people who make USB microphones have seen massive increases in sales. Yeah. Because people are tired of that sound. They don't want to sound bad. Like, when you go to a business meeting, typically, you shower, you do your hair, you get dressed, but now you don't. I mean, whether or not you have to do that now for your Zoom meeting, the way you present yourself is through the microphone. Yep. And if you sound bad, then that really reflects on you. Right. And I've had meetings with people in this industry, in the audio industry, and it just sounded awful. And I'm like, wow, how do you not make that connection? Right. This is how people experience you now. Yeah. So maybe it's just a hand-me-down from the phone days. Like, no one ever thought what their phone microphone sounded like. On the other hand, it was right next to your mouth, so it didn't matter. Right, exactly. It's the distance. It's when your laptop is 2 feet away. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So, but it is a big step. I think, we as a company are not pushing products for the conference audience because it is too big a step. USB, I get that, right? You buy one thing, you plug it in, and it just sounds better. Yeah. Right? That passes what, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, it passes the mom test, right? Yeah. Like if it's simple enough that someone's mother could just do it without thinking about it, I think that's easy to do. the microphones I make are really designed for studios, as you know, and it isn't difficult to plug it into like a USB mic pre, USB audio interface. Mackie makes them, Presonus, Focusrite, and others. A lot of companies make these. They're $99, so it's not that big a deal. But for the typical Zoom meeting person, probably a stretch.
Yeah,
it does sound good though.
Unless, of course, they've got a setup at home where like they're going to be most of the time, like their office, for example. Then they could sort of build it out and be.
Oh, it's worth it.
Separate steps. I mean, it is. It's like it's not that crazy an investment. And to be totally honest, I know we talked about this at NAMM too, and to be sort of transparent about it for folks listening, like I look at a lot of fellow YouTubers who sort of blindly, and it's nothing wrong with that particular mic. And totally honest, I've never even used one. I want to try one. Who blindly see someone using like an SM7B, a Shure SM7B, and just go like, that's the mic I got to have. That's the podcast mic, right?
Yep.
And I love this because it's not that. I like to do something a little different than everybody else and still get a great result. And I think if people just took a moment to sort of try different things, see how their voice sound on it, if you can. I mean, it's hard. You're not going to go out and buy 4 different mics if you're just starting a podcast or whatever, but you shouldn't be spending $400 on a microphone anyway if you're just starting, which is what I tell people. But have you seen a jump at all in these 2 mics in terms of the podcasting world for you in the last 3 months?
Well, so 2-part answer. And then I want to get back to the SM7B because I think that's a really interesting question. So we've seen a huge uptick in sales, but I don't know what they're for. Like we don't know. Yeah. We try to reach out to people because in general, I love hearing what people do with the mics that I make. Yeah, I get a lot of sort of vicarious pleasure out of hearing music and whatever is created with these devices. But so we try to reach out to people, but we don't always know what they do with them. So whether it's podcasting or something else, I don't always know. Now the SM7B is, it's a classic broadcast mic. The catch with it, and I've said this a million times, so people may have heard this before, but it's basically the lowest output microphone you're ever likely to come across. Right. So what that means is you need a whole lot of preamp gain to get a good signal out of it. And there's various ways to do that. One way is to just turn your preamp up to 11. That's not the best way to do it. Right. Especially if you have a lower cost, what I call consumer grade preamp, something that's under a couple $100 a channel. When you turn those up past about 3/4, they tend to get noisy. Not all of them, but a lot of times they sound great. As you're turning the dial, the sound's great. You're halfway, sounds great. You're at 3/4 and all of a sudden, psh, you just hear this kind of white noise. Yeah. So the fix to that, one fix to that is to use a product from a company that's run by some friends of mine. Cloud Microphones makes a thing called a Cloud Lifter. It's an inline preamp, little blue box. You plug your mic into one end, plug your other end into the preamp, and it gives you a bunch of extra gain. So, but that does add expense. So you've got your, I don't know what the SM7 costs, $400 maybe.
I think it's $399. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got that for the mic. I think the Cloud Lifter is in the $150, $170 range. Then your preamp is going to be at least $99. So it does start to stack up. But so that's one thing. And that's, those problems are all solvable and the mic does sound great on a lot of voices. No mic is universal, right? There's no microphone that is awesome on every voice. The mic that you have, the Mini K87, is it's very neutral in its voicing, so it's more likely to be compatible with a lot of voices. Microphones that are more colored tend to be more selective about what voices they complement. Right. As a general rule, that's what I believe, and that's what I've experienced. Now, the SM7, it has a voicing switch on it, so you can get a couple different kinds of sounds out of it. So you'd have to experiment with that. But you should try it, as you say. And then the other thing I was going to say about this is that the SM7 is a dynamic mic, and so it tends to work best when it's right up close to the source. Yeah. Especially for podcasting. So your voice is not that loud. Like the human voice is not a super loud source. And so a dynamic microphone is really good for hearing things that are kind of right in front of it. But it means you kind of have to get on it. So my canonical example of this mic is Joe Rogan. Who I believe he uses an SM7. Actually, I don't pay that much attention, but I believe that's what he uses.
He does, yeah.
But he's right on it. Like he's got the thing right below his lips.
Yeah.
When he speaks. And so if you're just doing audio, that's great. If you're doing video too, consider, do you really want the mic in your face? Now it works for Joe. He sounds great. He looks great. He's super successful, no question. But everyone who's thinking about buying that should ask that question. Like, do I want to basically eat that mic? Because that's kind of what you need to do to have it sound the way you probably want it to sound.
Right.
Condenser microphone, in contrast, you can back away from a little bit without compromising the sound. In fact, you wouldn't want to put your mouth right up against the grill of a condenser in most cases.
Hey, what's happening, roadies? It's Larry here. Just wanted to thank you so much for listening to this short clip. I really hope you got something out of it. If you can take 2 seconds to head over to iTunes and drop us a review or a comment, we would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Keep listening, keep coming back, stay healthy out there, and remember, no roadies, no rock and roll.